we can start now, and I can hand over to Professor Philipp Sandner, who will heading this panel.
Exactly. No bio breaks. We just continue directly. Alireza is also joining us here. Happy to have you here. Alireza, please sit down here because then it's more aesthetic with the camera. Yes, please. So we will talk about NFTs, for example, today, and also a couple of other topics, of course, especially the question, of course, whether NFTs are now a hype or not. Everybody talks about NFTs. Yesterday on Sunday, I met the daughter of friends somewhere in Stuttgart, and then the daughter is also an artist, and she now thinks that with NFT she can somehow earn a lot of money. You know, it's not that easy, of course. And once people are minting, you know, thousands and thousands and 10,000s and billions of NFTs, then they are not scarce anymore, right? They are scarce in case you have like an amazing artist, an amazing art piece, then scarcity is existing. But if you are minting like billions and millions and thousands of NFTs, then it's not scarce anymore. That's the questions which we would like to discuss independently of this. NFTs are absolutely fascinating. They will be the future, but same with ICOs. Some of them and some of the approaches, some of the smart contracts behind do make sense and will grow. And these other masses of tokens out there probably might not make so much sense. Let's get started. Maybe I ask everybody to quickly present themselves, and let's start directly with Alireza here in Frankfurt. Please present yourself and also your company to give the audience a little bit of a background.
Yeah, hello everyone. I'm very happy to be here again. I think 3 years in a row I'm participating at a CAC. I'm Alireza. I'm a German qualified lawyer, a partner at Enerton. Besides doing this, I'm also a board member of the European Commission's Blockchain Association in INATBA. I'm a founder and board member of the Luxembourg-based Think Block Tank. I'm an advisor to the Blockchain Founders Group, and I'm also an editor, publisher of a German legal journal on digital economy. And yeah, so that's from me.
Excellent. Thanks very much. Let's go over to those people sitting somewhere in the world. Maybe I directly ask Michael Spitz to present himself and your company briefly.
Hi, Philip. Thank you very much. My name is Michael. So I'm the CEO of 360X. And I thought, given the fact that this is more of an art discussion, I'm really pleased to have my colleague and CEO of the art vertical here, Shireen, who will be doing most of the talking, as we want not to talk about second layer protocols or anything that I talked the last 3 years in the CAC about. In addition, I'm not just on 360X, but I'm also an advisor of the Blockchain Founders Group. I jointly with Philip do a DLT Talents. I think there's a talk later on. And before that, I used to run the Mine Incubator, CEO, and be on the venture side until end of last year. But with that, over to Shireen, who will be doing most of the talking as it's art related in NFT, if that's okay.
Excellent. Thanks very much. That was speedy, and we don't have much time. Therefore, let's directly proceed. Shireen, please also present yourself briefly.
Hello, everybody. My name is Shireen. I'm the CEO of the 360X art vertical. I'm a specialist for contemporary art, coming from the auction business, and worked in art lending for the last 7 years. And by the end of last year, I joined the 360X Art. And yeah, hello, everybody.
Perfect. Nice to be here. And let's move on to Lasse Clausen from 1KX. I think an excellent fund out there. Please also present yourself and your background.
Thank you very much for having me and for throwing this conference. My name is Lasse Clausen. I'm one of the founding partners of 1KX. We're a crypto venture fund, one of the earlier generations, started in 2018. Today, we've raised $150 million, all the range from strategic like Huobi, which is the largest Chinese exchange, to the largest Ethereum miner in the world, to institutional players such as Acolyte Capital and Partners and L1 Digital from Zurich.
Perfect. Thanks very much. And we have Sebastian Blum here from another fund. Please also present yourself briefly.
Hello, good morning. I'm Sebastian. I'm one of the co-founders of Greenfield One. We're a Berlin-based venture firm that's exclusively investing in crypto and Web3. I have a bit of a traditional VC and entrepreneurial background, having worked and lived in the US as well as Europe. So I've been in a corporate VC firm, a private one, and twice on the entrepreneurial side. And thanks for throwing this as well. Yeah.
Excellent. And we have Jan here again. Kanat Jan, as we say in Bavaria. Would you like to repeat a quick of an introduction for those people who might have joined later?
Yeah, I'm going to make it very quick. Hi, I'm Jan. Nice to meet you. I'm one of the co-founders of Timeless. We're now live for overall 3 years. Our investors are Porsche and EOS VC Fund. And yeah, I'm looking forward to the panel. Excellent. Perfect. So let's start with the first real question. How many NFTs do you own? If you want to say it, if this is confidential, then I perfectly understand this. Actually, I own one for test purposes, right? But what about you guys? Alireza?
None.
0, but you should, because it's better to then sell your law services, right? In case you have like hands-on NFT. But at the other point of time, I think it takes more time until this develops. Okay, maybe Lasse, what about you?
I think I have around 20 because every ETH global event, POAP, is a proof of attendance protocol. And so basically every one of those Ethereum conferences, you would get basically an NFT that was an attendance badge. So I have a lot of those.
Excellent. Sebastian?
About 60 or so.
60, wow, that's a big number.
Cheap ones, yeah.
Okay. Jan, what about you?
15.
15, excellent. Michael and Shirin?
We own 2. One we created and one we bought.
Okay, perfect. Let's later on purchase a couple of them to be able to talk on the same height with you guys. Yeah, so let's jump into the topic and talk about NFTs. What are you in the ecosystem doing with NFTs? Are you experimenting with them? Are you tokenizing things with them? Are you investing in them? And what kind of NFTs have you purchased? Is it an art piece or music or this and that? Who wants to start? Maybe Michael, would you like to explain your connection to NFTs?
Well, probably Shirin is the best party to start with ethics.
Yeah, we are currently, we are working with NFTs in the art market. I think everybody within the last 12 weeks has read about NFTs in the art market. And the art market has specific qualifications or a special need for NFTs, which were obvious in the pandemic or came quite clear that a market who missed digitalization, e-commerce, with the closing of the art fairs and the galleries and the museums, developed a certain need for digitalization and a digital solution. So the NFTs and especially the soul of the people artwork make clear that there is this huge opportunity to bring a democratic solution and open up the art market for new investors. And this is what we're currently working on.
Okay, so that's a very, very good use case. What about you, Lasse? What's your touch points precisely with NFTs?
So for us, we try to think of it in a more abstract, general way. And for us, NFTs are essentially property rights for the digital economy. It's the first time this existed. This is actually really big because property rights are a very key component of any society. If you looked at like the Soviet Union back then, where you essentially didn't have property rights, they had to build walls to keep people from running out, right? So it's a very essential component. And now basically every piece of data in the world could essentially be property and have also very, very cost-efficient automatic enforcement of those property rights. So we've been investing for a year now into the infrastructure of that and the financialization of NFTs. We don't buy individual NFTs themselves because that's a very different thing to a technology platform investor. But we have invested, we led the seed round for Rarible, which is one of the leading NFT marketplaces. But we've also invested in projects like Niftex, which allow you to fractionalize NFTs. It's very similar to what the bond market does, right? So you could imagine a bond has unique properties, has maybe an expiry date. that's an NFT, but then you can fractionalize that into ERC20 tokens and repackage those and then maybe sell, a basket of different bond equivalents or ERC20s. So we kind of invest in infrastructure for NFTs, technology platforms, technology protocols, and particularly sort of this intersection of DeFi and NFTs really, really interesting for us.
So focusing on investments in the infrastructure, if I got this right?
That's correct. Yeah.
Sebastian, same with you, or are you also a fund potentially investing in single NFTs?
Yes, it's a bit similar to what Lasse mentioned. So I think starting from a high level, we don't think necessarily of NFTs as something that's only related towards collectible or entertainment sort of positions, but similarly, very much a right to enforce something, and that is, terribly unique on these blockchains. In terms of what we've done historically, we've been part of Dapper Labs and thus also the Flow blockchain, which obviously has a little bit of a branding in the market, but as well, things like Arweave that is promoting themselves and with one very particular use case of hosting NFTs on our permaweb. So right now we're generically investing in the space, and as such, some of these networks that we're investing, there's marketplaces building on top of, et cetera. I think going forward, we would love to just experiment. It's very nascent, and I think a lot of the things we don't have answers to, but the upside is tremendous. So we really want to be a bit of more of an experimental kind of angle and have that going forward.
Yeah, excellent. By the way, why am I looking on my cell phone? Because that's my connection to you guys. Some people have criticized me already today that I'm looking on my smartphone, but that's the only way to read what you write. So I hope you get this point that I need this to understand the questions you have. So maybe, Jan, over to you. How are you legally structuring the tokens and the NFTs you have on your platform? Are these ownership rights? Are these other kind of rights? And a question to you, Jan, and also then later on to you, Alireza. How is the governance of these tokens? What in case there is this sneaker or this other asset? Does this need to be in some kind of vault? Sitting in a bank because then the value remains, or can you do something with it? Can you put them in a museum, and who is deciding then on what's going on with them? That would be the first question to you, Jan, and then from a legal perspective, I think Alireza can maybe add what's going on here from a legal and regulatory perspective.
Yeah, I'm happy to answer then. First, quickly to answer on Sebastian, then we have quite a few questions to our concept. I think also this kind of that there's a potential momentum with NFTs, and there most probably are a lot of flaws that are happening with that. A lot of people look at it like ICO 2.0, 97% of them most probably will not have that value, and so on and so forth. But I think we're at the next inflection point where normal people who are not part of a crypto asset conference situation actually understand what blockchain and overall what kind of use cases can be. And of course, we see this with blockbuster sales like Beeple with Christie, so on and so forth. But again, it will be a very, very slow way of getting to the next step. But I think we're getting to a certain extent here closer to that normal people understand what blockchain can do. And then looking into what Lasse said, of course, this is a very in-depth idea of how this can be done. I cannot see myself explaining this to my dad. However, what I can explain it to him is that there's someone who sold an art piece of a Christie's for this amount. So I think that's also what we are looking into. And that's also the way why we believe that we're slowly bringing normal people into the idea of fractionalizing collectibles and then bringing it over to that there are digital collectibles and that there are actually certain rights associated to it and can be a utility actually programmed into a token. But what we are looking for, of course, is to find the masses and not just everyone who's already in that industry. Having that said, looking into how are we doing it with our collectibles right now? If we are fractionalizing, let's say a sneaker, like you can see it here, this is actually stored in a bank vault. And the same thing goes for watches. As you can imagine, collectibles cars don't fit so great into a bank vault. So there's actually a very good, let's say, old-timer garage where you have the perfect kind of climate and everything else, and it's security 24/7. And what we're doing there, we have a staged approach, how we actually, let's say, generate the rights and what it actually means. And I think it's perfectly, because I can say this sentence now, I brought my lawyer into that call, and this is actually Alireza, who can give some more insights on that. I try to refuse out of the to directly put him on the spot with that. But of course, to be honest, what we're doing right now is, let's say, the first phase where there are no royalties connected to it. There's no specific way of like how you can decide a lot of this. The reason for this, to be very honest, of course, regulatory is not very far right now. So of course, I would have loved to program much more of, let's say, rights and everything into the way of how we right now fractionalizing a real collectible. But also we want to regulate to what the law is right now. And this, of course, gives us as a German GmbH with Porsche as an investor, not the freedom to just do it the way it is. What we're having there, of course, is a staged process that's coming over time. And the more we're launching digital collectibles, the more we will come to points as Lasse also mentioned it with what does it actually mean? What are royalties you're getting out of it? What kind of rights do you have? And how can you actually participate in that? Currently, we are fractionalizing real collectibles. And that therefore then means that you own a fraction of that you can not use it, that you can trade it whenever you want. I think that's very important. So if Lasse buys a part of it, he wants to decide when to sell it and not just waiting for us to auction it after, let's say, 3 years. And they will be displayed in, let's say, kind of pop-up scenarios where people can actually look at it. However, you have to think about like a museum-grade collectible. So,
okay. But Jan, it's a discussion. Therefore, I hope I may interrupt you and ask Alireza how this is legally being done. How far are we? Is the regulation, like really hindering the development here? Could it go faster? Should a company go out of Europe to then have like a higher flexibility on doing things with NFT? What's the status here? What's your feeling? Is it a good area to be in here? Is it a difficult area to be in, and so on?
Yeah. So now you maybe understand why I'm not owning any NFTs, because I advise too many of my clients, and there would be conflict of interest to acquire also their products. No, just kidding. So I mean, looking at NFT market, I was looking into this topic from a very very early time. In 2017 already, we wrote with PwC at that time a report to Sony when I was introducing Sony to have an NFT on their media, which they accepted and published it even, so you can Google it and you find that paper. So what I'm trying to say is that looking at NFT, it is very complex. First of all, you have to understand, is it really an NFT? Because you can call it NFT, but no one is really checking if it's an NFT. But if it's really a non-fungible token, and the regulation of non-fungible token is tricky, because from a European perspective, which is important for all of us, we have the Markets and Crypto Assets Regulation, MiCA, coming soon. But what most of you do not know, right now the MiCA is getting updated. Until now, NFTs are inside the MiCA, but they are going to be excluded from the MiCA. So the argumentation from the presidency of the European Commission is that it is a non-fungible token, so therefore it is similar to a financial instrument under MiFID, and therefore it has not to be inside the MiCA. So it's going to be not regulated by the MiCA, which is for some people good because they think, oh, it's not going to be regulated. But I would say it's bad because we do not have any transparency. We do not understand how is it going to be regulated. To give you a description, in Germany, we would most likely regulate an NFT because we have something called Vermögensanlage, which is an investment asset. And as such, it would be regulated even though it's not fungible, because a Vermögensanlage is not supposed to be fungible. So which means you would need to have in Germany a regulation, a prospectus for this product, but maybe in Austria or Netherlands not. Therefore, you cannot do the passporting. You cannot passport your product within the European Union because you do not have a harmonized regulation of it. And 2 more sentences. This is for NFTs. When we talk about fractional NFTs, FNFTs, these are on the other side covered by the MiCA because a fractional NFT is fungible, and therefore it is either covered by the MiFID already or by the MiCA. And in Germany, it's not just a Vermögensanlage, it's most likely a security, and it's covered also by that. And therefore, this makes it very tricky.
Yes, I think it really also sounds very tricky. Therefore, a deep respect, Jan, that you made it work somehow. Congrats, must have been difficult. But let's talk about the future areas where we will see more NFTs. My personal opinion is that primarily the gaming sector should be deeply beneficial for NFTs. Concerning art pieces and other things, I personally think that you have 2 types of NFTs. You have true digital art, where the object in the NFT or the reference to the NFT is something purely digital. Then this should be possible and quite easily being done. But once you are trying to connect physical objects to it, like that's the sneaker and that's the art piece and the classic car and so on, then it potentially can really get complicated. That's my feeling. Therefore, once again, Jan, nice that you have really done it. But question to all of you, maybe we start again with Shirin and Michael from 360X. Where are the future super domains of NFTs? You know, is it ticketing systems, ecosystem access? Is it computer gaming, art pieces, collectibles? Is it whatever? You know, what's your bet?
Okay, I'm going to give it a start. So overarching, I think, as we are a serial marketplace, and we're very happy that we received funding from Deutsche Börse and Commerzbank just recently first closing. It is really distinct. You need to have domain knowledge and domain expertise in the various things. So one is clearly being, and NFTs can be applied not just to art, and Shane will talk about this, but also to and it was mentioned, to the intellectual property rights, to the ultimately real estate side, the gaming side. And so I think there are quite a lot of functionalities. Nevertheless, we're still scratching the surface at the moment, because we're trying to, and that's kind of the whole mission that we're trying to get, also getting the secondary trading, getting involved, all the various parties who ultimately want to get financial exposure. So not just a technological solution, but getting, and we discussed that recently, Philip, in a discussion, the emergence of metaverse, that ultimately everyone wants to have a digital second life and want to be part of it. So I think there's a lot of growth in these areas that goes far beyond the normal, let's call it, art part. I think these are all the possibilities that you can engage in. Nevertheless, also from a technology point of view, and I'm grateful, as Sebastian mentioned, and also Lasse, we're not yet clear on the standardization, whether it's EFC 721, we see this Palm, we see this Flow, but at the end of the day, you think you transfer ownership, but there are a lot of questions out there. The question is, if someone maybe just a reference to a website, and then still the image itself may be gone, just because the guy didn't pay his Google account or didn't pay his AWS account. So what's the value? But maybe now on the art piece, over to Shirin.
I think in the future, the art market, which is currently a non-transparent market, and not at the moment, art is not able to be used as a real asset for investors. And I think in the future, through the NFT technology and the fungible token technology, art will be investable for big investors. And I think the art market will split into an investor market and into an art historical market. And this we are currently working on to make it accessible and also transparent. So it can be rated, it can be, it's suitable for the financial systems, and also it's able to be exited, because this is also a problem. If you invest into art right now, you cannot sell the piece the next day if you want. So these are, I think, in the future will all be possible.
Okay, excellent. Maybe Sebastian, what's your opinion about the key domains where NFTs will grow? At this point of time, we have masses of NFTs being minted by all kinds of people. This will consolidate at some point of time, and then some domains should be identifiable where they probably really make sense and where they can grow, like DeFi, referencing smart contracts, right? So what are these domains where you would see NFTs really thrive and grow in, say, half a year or in 12 months?
Yeah, I think probably everybody can say the same, that we're being approached by people that do art, and all of a sudden they heard about NFTs and they're asking, where can I create my NFT and mint it? And I think as a human, we're first and foremost, looking out to the real world and then saying, how can we bring something into this digital world? And I think those are these first baby steps and door openers for evangelizing the space. But I think us as investors, we're super excited about something that's yet to come. And I think a lot of the potential will be in these virtual environments. And Michael mentioned metaverse, exactly those things. And I think Michael also just coined it the Second Life. I think when the creators of Second Life many years ago had thought of what the world could be today, they would have lusted for having Web3 available. And I think that's exactly, we don't know it yet for sure, but we can see a little bit of the glimpse in these digital environments with virtual worlds morphing together. And I think, again, we should probably ask and turn towards the next generation, that's coming alongside, and how they are using that. And I think with these gaming native kind of like youngsters, that's the first foray that's going to be very amazing.
So my bet on gaming would not be that bad, right? Lasse, what's your opinion on this?
Yeah, I think so. I think bringing all these legacy real world things into NFTs, I'm just very bearish on institutional and societal change and corporations really adjusting and trying to fit this old paradigm into the digital world. It does make sense. Yes, even house, my property record would be much more efficient as an NFT, and I can transfer it, etc. It's from wallet to wallet. That's essentially a property transaction. All these things would make sense, and that would be 10 times more efficient. But the problem is that we have to get, the whatever, or the Handelsregisterämter, whatever, all these legacy institutions that are stamping papers, they're not going to do this. And I think just the mental model for them to switch is going to take a very, very long time. So I'm more bearish on real world assets on the blockchain. Everybody was very excited about security tokens, and I think it also proved to be not, it's just a big challenge when you also then have to bridge the real world thing with the digital world. And so digitally native sort of NFTs is much more interesting. I also think there's going to be a lot of experimentation of things that we can't even imagine yet. So for example, there's NFTs that they change depending on the transaction history. So every time it's bought or sold, it actually changes its properties, it changes what it is. So I think a lot of, just really, really innovative things. And gaming metaverse, I think, is going to be very, very big. What I mentioned earlier, because it's becoming essentially a society, and there's millions of people that are living mostly digitally now. And again, for them, they need property rights, right? If you invest that much time and that much of your money into your digital life, you want that to be protected and that to be property.
That's an interesting point. Well, let's start with the break 5 minutes later, if this is okay, or 3 minutes. I have one last round. I would ask anybody to respond, please, because if we are now going back in time, right? We had the ICO hype. Utility tokens was basically a type of token which existed to stay away from security tokens, right? That was the key reason of utility tokens, was to stay away from security tokens. Then we had the smart contracts and the decentralized finance topic popping up. You know why? And at this point of time, you had so many people saying, okay, let's try to combine legacy contracts on paper somehow with smart contracts and combine it such that the smart contract is executing the paper-based contract, right? What happened here? Actually not so much, right? At the end of the day, DeFi emerged and arose purely digital without any real world use case, right? There is speculation going on in investing and so on, but it's something like an inner circle where everybody is doing smart contract execution, and then you have thousands of transactions happening. But it's something else than people thought it might be, when people thought that smart contracts need to be reconciled with legacy paper-based contracts, right? So once again, the projections didn't take place. And now the current projections, that's where I wanted to go to, the current projections would be that NFTs are the perfect digital tool to combine physical, touchable, tangible assets and bring them somehow with a digital twin into the real world. And we see now that from a regulatory perspective, it's possible, yes, but it's very, very, very complex. And then on the go, like a moving target, the regulation is changing. You have MiCA coming up here and another regulation there. So it's very, very difficult to really do something because it's changing all the time. And therefore, and that's now the question, sorry for this long speaking, but the question now would be, in case the reference to ICOs and DeFi is true, then making NFTs a tool for combining physical assets with digital assets would be the wrong assumption, right? That's a question, you know. That's not a given, not a fact. But if so, then NFTs would primarily thrive in the pure digital world. This would then be pure digital objects such as you said, virtual worlds, computer gamings, potentially also special music, digital art, and so on, because this is purely digital and then because it's purely digital, it makes sense to somehow connect an NFT to it. That's an hypothesis what I just have put out. Would you agree with this, or would you disagree? Such that the technology basically is always, the technology is liquid and it's basically flowing exactly in this direction, where at this point of time there is no regulation. And if there is a regulatory roadblock, then the technology somehow flows besides it. That's somehow I feel DeFi has grown, utility tokens have grown, crypto assets have grown, and so on. Would you agree with this, or is this full nonsense? Alireza, would you like to give it a cautious start?
Yeah, I wouldn't say it's full nonsense, but I would just add something to it. I mean, if you look at the current NFT market, as you look at timeless investments or you look at 360X, you have two categories of NFTs. You have one, the physical, like the real asset which is tokenized, and then you have something like IP rights, which are tokenized, which are more or less not physical. Comparing it to ICOs or to DeFi, I don't think that NFTs or DeFi is going now the most or the less regulatory way. I think that the market became much more sophisticated compared to the ICO times of 2017. Now the people, they understand they do not want to have a token which is reflecting debt capital instruments, but equity in case of insolvency, and et cetera, but also because they like collectibles, they like to be part of it, they like to have it as their own. And this is, I think, something which brings this technology, NFTs and so on, further without really passing regulation.
Okay, what about you? Lasse, what's your opinion on this?
Yeah, short form, I would agree. I think there might be small societies where they form consensus that, yes, the NFT represents a contract and we transact with it. I could see that happening with the art world because it's a small enough group that they can form the social consensus that is required to say, look, we don't care about the paperwork anymore. All we care about certificate, and that, you know, represents the ownership of this physical good that's sitting somewhere in a free port zone next to an airport in Belgium. I can see that happening for small groups, but other than that, I really think the big innovation and the big success is really going to come in digitally native property.
Okay. What about Jan? What's your opinion?
I think it's a staged process. I think if we're looking into how does the overall world perceive it right now, I think we will need to guide them through the different stages of what is possible. And I think that what we're seeing right now, because the full-fledged NFT metaverse idea that most of us, I think, know and understand is something that seems to be completely unreal for everyone out there. So what we'll see over the next years is products that will actually build these bridges. And then, of course, IP owners and brands either jumping on their chip and understanding it and how to actually they build a community with the digital natives over time, or they don't. So I think it's super interesting, and a lot of things are not 100% clear, but I don't think that we're going from 0 to 1 just in 1 second. No.
Excellent. And then last but not least, Sebastian, Michael and Shirin, what's your opinion on this last question by me?
I can be short. Everything's been said before. Yes, I think the much bigger one is digitally native, and it's going to take quite some time still. And it's not going. The big thing is definitely not going to be pressing the physical world into this digital environment.
Maybe just a thought, and then I'll let Shirin finish off, of course. In a way, for me, these are kind of building hybrids, because similar to we have money in cash, which a few people are using, and they had the first discussion about digital money in whatever shape or form, preloading on your MasterCard and so on. But ultimately, we're moving now into something more programmable. And the nice thing about DLT and blockchain, in particular, then with NFTs or fractional ownership, is ultimately combining and having the possibility as a hybrid model to bridge the old world, like having real physical artists, they create something with their hand, with their mind, and then also having the digital artists and bringing them together across the areas of investors that are only so far have worked on ETH and on Bitcoin and on that kind of currencies, to the more traditional ones saying, I actually want to get an exposure to art, because it's very important for society. It's important being supporting the culture. So getting the possibility to do that, I think this is the real benefit of bridging these two worlds and being a hybrid instruments in between. So I think it's not a hype, it's nothing to compare to ICOs. And this time we will not let the lawyers decide we're not going to do this. We're certainly going to make that happen. That's for sure.
Excellent.
Of course, all the parties in here excluded.
Excellent. Shirin, you want to add a very last word?
I agree, of course, with Michael, and I think the art world is a special, let's say at the moment, it has opened up. It was very old-fashioned, and so the impact of this whole new technology is huge, and we will see amazing developments and more. It will get faster, quicker in the whole processes. So I think in the art world there will be immense changes, but I think I agree with what Jan and Lasse said, and of course Michael. Yeah.
Excellent. Okay.
Thank you.
Thanks much. We now have the break. So my takeaway message is that NFTs are the future, but at this point of time, it's a little bit chaotic to really see the patterns, what's going on here. I also now heard that both is possible, digitally transforming physical art, but also opening up digital art, maybe some room for thought for the break. Maybe we should found a company bringing digital art into computer games with NFTs. Let's see who founds the first company in this domain. Thanks much. And with this, we are going to the break, right, Manuel? And then we are resuming in approximately half an hour, I think, or 25 minutes.